Now, Dame Anita Roddick famously turned a small cosmetics shop in Brighton into a massive global brand. The Body Shop is now a household name, with shops in high streets all over this country and indeed all over the world. It was sold to the cosmetics giant L'Oreal for a reported £650 million in 2006. Well, when Anita Roddick died 7 years ago from complications caused by hepatitis C, the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown said she'd inspired millions to the green cause by bringing sustainable products to a mass market. She fulfilled her promise to leave her estate to charities on moral grounds. She really was a game changer, and Jenny talked to her in 1996, and she put it to Anita Roddick that nobody in the industry is going to be squeaky clean when it comes to animal testing.
Let's get it straight. Any ingredient would have been tested. I mean, you can get Japan will test water, America will test for any other industry, whether it's carpet dye. We have never tested, and many companies have never tested either.
No, not personally, but you've used ingredients that have been tested by other people.
But when we found that to be done, we've pulled them out of the stores. The most important thing is that you have to regulate every 6 months your supplies of raw ingredients, and if they can't give you a assurance, then you have to pull them out or you have to go somewhere else. The dilemma is that the whole industry now is looking for an alternative, and they have alternatives. They have cell culture, they have in vitro, they have skin patch tests. The reality is there. Also, the fact is that animal testing is very shabby. You know, human skin is not animal skin. The lobbying won't allow us to get these alternative tests validated, because the huge strength is the relationship between the toxicologists, who have not changed in 40 or 50 years on this subject, and the big boys. Nobody wants animal testing.
The government in this country is proposing to introduce new labelling laws because they're aware of the fact that stuff is tested elsewhere, and they're saying that companies should not be allowed to put cruelty-free or not tested on animals because the animals may have been used elsewhere. Shouldn't you welcome that?
No, because I don't think it's right. I think that what they're saying is to not allow any companies like ours to give you the honest information, because they too are being very much pressurised by the big boys in the industry and the trade associations that are dictating that. Nobody will know. So in reality, nobody will know what's tested or what isn't tested. Even if you have a campaign slogan, which we do, against animal testing, they would say, no, that is not relevant.
But isn't it fair, because you've admitted that it can sneak in? You have to be incredibly vigilant all the time.
Yeah, but you have to be
vigilant
to change the law, Jenny. That, you know, this is going on for years. How are we going to change the law? How do you effectively represent 4 million people who say something is irrelevant as a blusher, a lipstick, you know, tested on a living vertebrae?
Now, when you started out 20 years ago, did you have these kind of high ideals then, or was it just a good idea?
We were part of the activist movement. Most of us in the 60s were bringing social issues out into where our shops were just an extension of our kitchen. We didn't know you weren't allowed to do that stuff. And I think that naivety shone us and protected us. When you have a department of some 40 people, and within those 40 people, there are people working on human rights, trading with communities in need, ethical and social auditing. The game is so much bigger now. It's so much more difficult. It's braver. And in the end result, if the products weren't at least acceptable and pleasant and good, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
But, I mean, people dub you, rather jokingly, the Queen of Green. But I know that in this year alone, even you've been accused of sexual discrimination for making women wear makeup and of exploiting Amazonian Indians.
Oh,
Doesn't it show, though, that marketing and morality are uneasy bedfellows, no matter how much you want to try and make them good bedfellows?
I think so. I think the dilemma is that you can take any press headline and it will weave a web of assumption. That's so bloody ludicrous. I think the more real, profound, very strong anti-feeling about what we do definitely comes from a very right-wing caucus of the press and a couple of very strong, very, very vigilante company stalkers.
But what about the Amazonian Indians then, who it said that you'd been using their image in the shops, their facial image, and you hadn't repaid them properly for the stuff that you'd taken from them?
What the sadness is about what you read in the press is that there's no rigour in terms of real serious authority. We've been working with the Kaipo Indians for years. We've been belly to belly with them. We've been supporting them. We have huge amount of images that we will use internally, but with their approval, and we pay them. But it's not only that, we've given them an alternative to logging. And I don't know any other company that sends their CEO to try and release hostages, which they've done when they get uptight about the local police. It's a very dangerous and very difficult route to go, but it's worthwhile. So with all of these, challenges to us and our behaviour, it comes with the territory. You stand up and you try and change the nature of business, you're going to have this bullseye constantly.
Now, what about your daughter, who we've read about over the weekend, rejecting the family fortune?
Well, she's never had it offered. My kids aren't inheriting anything. It goes into a foundation.
It sounds like another renegade, though, a bit like you were.
Well, I'm so thrilled with Sam. For me, Sam is Sam is the future. She's a vigilante consumer. She challenges every corporation. She wants to know the story behind the product. She's frugal. There's a great conspiracy of science about frugality, and she shapes my thinking.
Anita Roddick talking to Jenny in 1996. If you're really had your appetite whetted there, and I wouldn't be surprised if you had, because Anita Roddick gave a very good interview. You can hear the whole of that in the Woman's Hour archive collection on our website. And the future that she talked about there, daughter Sam is with us. Sam, good morning to you. I hope, was that strange or lovely listening to your mum?
It kind of creates a tender heart. I love hearing my mum. It's like having a little vacation with her. She's so entertaining.
Yeah.
And she just kind of puts the passion in your knickers.
Well, she and Jenny were well matched, I would say, in that, judging by that extract. Sam, as many of you will know, was the founder of the erotic emporium Coco de Mer. And also with us, Lucy Siegel, who writes for The Observer on ethical issues. Lucy, welcome back to the programme.
Thank you.
Let's talk then, Sam, about your mum's pivotal influence on the beauty industry. How do you see it now, her legacy?
Well, I see that her legacy has had such a far reach. I was talking actually Facebook this morning about how she's actually affected all our lives for the positive, and it was so rare that business really put themselves in a position where they were fighting for the greater good, and through that she's influenced so many people. And she wasn't just trying to change the cosmetic industry, she was trying to change the behaviour of business and challenge our economic system into being a much more traditionally value-based kind of body. And I think in terms of what we have taken away is that there are many companies kind of have taken up the beacon of ethics. But what she did that was remarkable is that she used her company for public lobbying, like the EU and the government,
and she
on
made
a political
real changes.
forum.
Yeah.
And she got her customers, and still the animal rights test, the anti-animal testing cosmetic petition she got signed was 4 million people, and that's still the largest EU petition ever kind of handed in.
Yeah, Jenny made the point in that interview, Lucy, that marketing and morality don't always go terribly well together. I mean, actually, the truth is that remains the case, doesn't it?
It's possibly even more so the case now. And I think that it's so worth listening to Anita again, isn't it? Because you just suddenly brings back to me, as Sam said, she had a point. She was taking something in a direction. She just wasn't just selling stuff or trying to find a gap in the market or trying to shift units. There was a different point. And at the same time, she wasn't just generating income or shareholder value so that she could have the nice things in life. She had a definite purpose. And I hearing her again makes me realise that sometimes our understanding of ethical business now is much more vanilla, which incidentally was one of her ingredients.
I was going to say, that's the scent I remember. But actually, we forget. But I mean, I can remember life before the Body Shop, and it wasn't good. It was brilliant. I was in my teens, I think, at the time, early 20s, and the body. You were right, Lucy. It was vanilla. Yeah. Vanilla body cream everywhere.
Yeah, and peppermint. I remember that very strong.
The foot stuff.
Yeah. But it was just that accessibility, wasn't it? And just telling those supply chain stories that we're madly trying to...
What do you mean, supply chain?
I'm talking about the producers. Like, nobody thought about who made stuff and who had grown and harvested peppermint or vanilla pods or whatever before, on that scale. And now we have a situation where we have lots and lots of ethical businesses, and we talk about sustainability in all sectors, from fashion to gardening to goodness knows to banking. And we have a real problem selling those stories. Anita's great gift to me was her ability to connect with producers and to tell those stories in the most powerful and entertaining way, actually.
I mean, the reality was that she was a passionate teacher. That's what her training was. As you know, she used to teach in Littlehampton School, and what she did, she turned her shops into classrooms. And she was a passionate person who really wanted to inspire people with knowledge and challenge herself within that. And she was brave and she was kick-ass. And I think that there are many people today that have kind of, taken up her parapet and are really trying to change their own industries.
A lot of people, though, of course, we can't avoid the fact that there were accusations of a sellout when the Body Shop went to L'Oreal for a huge sum of money.
They did sell out to L'Oreal, and that's because her company grew very big, and she was battling mediocrity in her own company. And she took her 35 million, she put it into a foundation, and she continues through her own work that she's kind of achieved to support many charities, but NGOs who are really challenging the political system.
I suppose what I want to ask you, Lucy, whether it's possible to be a big ethical company, or whether inevitably in the end you have to sell out to the big girls or boys.
Well, that was a watershed moment, wasn't it? The sell out to L'Oreal, and it's something that made people understand that ethical businesses, sustainable values in business doesn't mean that you don't have to make those really, really difficult business calls. It's still business. So to an extent, some of the same rules still apply. That's not what changes. So can ethical businesses mainstream and scale without making those compromises? Probably not, to be completely frank. But some people now are interpreting it in a very different way.
I do think that big business can trade ethically. I do believe they can behave ethically. What my mum wanted to do was be a political force for change, right? And that's what a big business can't seem to do. Or actually, I think it is shifting right now, where businesses, when you saw all of the remarks around the Olympics and Putin, how many companies put out something positive about same-sex loving? And that was a political statement. So I think she was just really a pioneer at the time, and we're taking some time to catch up.
I would say that's true, and I say that it's not, sometimes now it can seem like quite a tick box exercise, so it's sustainability values, and she was thinking about it in a political and humanitarian context, which is, hugely broad and hugely kind of important.
Lucy Siegel, thank you very much for your thoughts this morning. And Sam, we'll talk to you again in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much.
You.
Sam Roddick, and lots of people loving hearing Sam talking about her mum, judging by the remarks on Twitter. So it's touched a lot of people. Thank you.